session for Northwest Brokers on the Web Architect Admin Console. We'll be covering media and contour forms on June 27th, 2014. I'm going to go ahead and hand presenter controls over to Allison.
No, I just lost my keyboard.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give me just a second. I'm having some technical difficulties here.
Do you want to just use my laptop?
No, I have to read it to figure out what it just is.
Okay.
Okay. You should see the front end of the site. Do you see that? Regina?
Can you hear me? Yes, I do. Sorry, I had you on mute. Yep, I can see it.
Okay, excellent. All right, so yesterday we went over the basics of how to use the admin console, the site settings, where the site settings live, what they affect, what the difference is between pages and a page section, in that you can navigate to a page, you cannot navigate to a page section. Pages have their own URL, page sections do not. And then we talked a little bit about how to use the in context menu, which is the right click in the nodes, and then selecting create, delete, move, copy, etc. And we kind of touched on just how to use media inside a page or a page section, but we didn't talk about how to upload media or create the interactive media pieces or anything like that. So that's what we're going to start with today. Well, actually, I'm going to back up a little. We're actually going to start with the last tiny piece of the content training to go over the other kind of call out, which is the BDX call out, because it's a little different. So one of the things that we discussed with Michael, and I don't, this was prior to you being involved in these conversations because it was a little bit ago, is that inside of BDX is where you are going to add all of the communities, homes, and plans you want to display on your website. There is no charge to place the communities, homes, and plans in BDX Live and bring it down to your website. There is only a charge if you want to send that out to the listings. Okay? So right now, there's only premium builders, and they only have one community implemented. So when you're on the front end and you come to either using the search or going through the menu, there's only going to be one community on this page because that's all that's in BDX Live. So one of the big challenges you guys have right now is getting the rest of your community into BDX Live. Okay? Once you do that, you can actually target the individual community pages and the individual home and plan pages with content using the call-outs at the bottom of the page. Now, if you remember correctly, when we were in here yesterday, we said that you cannot navigate directly to community, home, or results, or any of the page sections like the BDX callouts, the regular callouts, or the individual info listings. Okay? So the way that you put content at the bottom of a specific community, home, or plan is by using the BDX callouts. They are different than the regular callouts. Okay? The way that they're different, I'm going to show you, is that you're actually going to create the type of callout you want to put at the bottom of a BDX page as a regular callout. Then in the BDX callout, it requires you to set the ID number from BDX Live so that it knows where to put them, because you can't put them directly on the community node like a regular page, because then the same ones would show up on every single community. Okay? So we're just going to right-click and we're going to create a new community callout. And notice you only have the ability to do what's called just a straight BDX callout. And as a best practice, I like to put here the community that I'm putting this on. So if I'm doing a community one, I'm going to do East Point. And I'm going to call this Community East Point. And then I need to get the ID anyway, so I'm just going to go to BDX Live, and I'm going to use that in the node name. That's my best practice. You can do it any way you like, but I like to be able to see just at a glance what I'm looking at. So here's the ID that we're looking for. So we're at the community, and we're looking for this ID. All right? So we're just going to copy that. And then I'm going to put that in the name so that I know that that's the community ID. Just in case I see that it's not working, I can go back and easily verify it without going all the way in here. So I'm just going to click Create. I'm going to reload and notice. Oh, say that again, please. Are you there? Hey, Regina, we lost you. Are you still there? Okay, assuming that you can hear us, we're going to just hang out until you're able to either reconnect or whatever. This is like the worst copy ever for some reason. I'm not sure why. It's really, really horrible. Columbia.
Are you there?
Hello?
Hi,
Hey,
my
Regina.
phone call dropped on the office line, so I'm just calling you back on my cell phone.
No problem.
I'm ready.
All right.
I did have a question. When you assign that community ID number, what is the significance of that ID number?
So the ID number in BDX Live is unique to this community. No other community will have this ID number. And what that does in the content management system is it identifies that community that it sees coming down to WebArchitect so that it can target whatever you're placing here to that specific community explicitly.
Got it.
Right. It's the same like if you were to come over here to like the CMS and just add a call out to the bottom of the YS page. It only shows up on the YS page because that page is unique. But at the community and plan and home level, these are not unique nodes. It's one node for every community in your system and every home and plan in your system. So if you were to place it here, you'd have the same thing on every single home or plan in your system, which you don't want to do.
No.
So this is the way you, this is the way you target them uniquely.
Okay.
Right? All right, so what we did is we named this one community, we call it East Point, and we add the BDX ID, and this is just a best practice that I use for naming it. Then we're just going to fill out this form, right? So the first thing is to say, yes, this is a community. Then to select the call-outs that we want to display, and then to add the BDX ID here. Okay, this is where it matters. It doesn't matter if it's in the name. It has to be here in this particular area. So before I save this, I'm actually going to go to this community so that you can see that they aren't on this page. Okay, they're actually going to show up above the footer, below the body. Okay, so now I've got this. I'm just going to check my properties page. Everything looks good. I'm going to save and publish. Okay, now if it's working correctly, when I refresh this page, the same content that we have on the home page will show up right there. Okay. So that's the difference between a regular call-out and a BDX call-out. The BDX call-outs are using the regular call-outs, and really what you're sending, what you're setting is the ID from BDX Live for what content should go here at the bottom of the page. Okay? So we're going to do one for a home real quick. There are no plans in this community. They're just homes. So we're going to go look at one of these homes in BDX Live. right? So I'm just going to dial into one of these spec homes. And they're all the same with the exception of the address. So let me make sure I know which address I'm grabbing. 29. Okay, so I'm going to go to 29. 29, that's this one. Okay, so here's that home. One thing for us to mention to you is a lot of the content that is already in BDX Live should be redone. Okay, the reason why this looks like this, where you have these white pads on either side, is because this image is too small in BDX Live. Because the image is too small, it's been padded with white. This is actually a bug because our images are not supposed to be padded with white. They're simply not supposed to be created. So this image would actually fail if there wasn't a bug in BDX Live right now, and it would be replaced with a missing image. So our best recommendation is that you go in and replace all of the images you have in BDX Live with images that are 1,024 pixels wide. That will fill up this container. This white padding, like I said, is actually on the image itself. So you can see that here, on the image itself. Okay. So that's just a note for you, for more work for you to do, right, to go back and manage this media. All right, so here's that plan. Now I haven't created yet, but we're going to see it show up right here. So here's the plan. I'm sorry, this home. This is the ID for the home. It's in exactly the same location for communities, homes, and plans in BDX Live. Just going to come back over here. We're going to create a new one. We're going to call it Plan Birch, and then I'm going to put that in, and that's, again, just my naming convention. I'm going to create that. I'm going to set this one as a home or plan. Either one should be set to a home. And I'm just going to set the exact same thing, put in the ID, save and publish, and then go back, refresh my page, and you'll see it should display right here at the bottom. All right, now the fact that this didn't display right here at the bottom is probably a bug that didn't get identified before. So let's just double check we're looking at the right one. 21429, okay. This one is 21429. There's my ID, 106.1051, 106.1051, and it published correctly. All right, so this didn't get QA'd, which means that there's a bug that we didn't identify when this was QA'd. So this will get corrected and deployed next Thursday. Okay, we do deployments on, the fall of the 10th. It'll get deployed as a fix for July 10th. We do all deployments on Thursday night, but unfortunately, because next week is a holiday on Friday, we don't deploy the day before a weekend or on holidays. So we'll get this fixed and it'll seamlessly get updated. So you can go ahead and create these call-outs, and as soon as the bug fix is fixed, it'll just show up. You don't have to wait if you're looking to do this, okay? But that's how that functions. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to unpublish both of these. I'm going to leave them in the system for you. They are set up, and you can go in once you've created your call-outs and just remove whatever I have here and replace it with whatever you like. This has the one community you have and then one of the 3 spec homes that you've got. So I'm just going to unpublish them, but they will be available for you. I won't delete them. Okay? All right. Any questions on the BDX call-out?
Nope.
Perfect. Okay, so then we're going to start with media. So just to go back to the site, and I'm going to come here to the home page, and we're going to talk about media a little bit. The first are going to be folders. You'll not ever see a folder in the media section on the front end. So in the media section, when you go to the media section, you're going to see these folders. Now, I created these, and you modify these in any way you want, but our best practice for you here is you're going to create a logical folder structure that makes sense for you. And by logical, we mean group your folders into things that are by type, not by page. In most CMSs, including WebArchitect, media is a upload once, reuse an infinite number of times. So if you have an image that you want to use in your site, you only have to upload that image one time, and then you can reuse that image on a number of pages, any number of pages. So if you make your folder structure match your page names, you're going to have difficulty finding images when they're being used not just on one page. Same thing for any kind of media. So what we generally do is we create a top-level folder for every type of media that exists in the system. And then underneath that, you're going to create subfolders to then break that down into a category of that type. So an image is a type of media in our system, and then these folders are categories of images. So icons and logos, are very specific and easy to identify when you're selecting this media from the content section. So to create a folder, right, we're just going to right-click just like we do in the content section. And from here, you don't have as many options. Right now, it's just create, sort, and reload. So we're going to go ahead and click create. And because we're doing this at the media level, it's going to create a top-level folder. So notice I have image sliders, footer images, galleries, and images. Those are my primary folder types. And you can see that corresponds with footer images, sliders, and galleries. The one thing I didn't create a folder for were files, right? Because when I uploaded the content for the site, it didn't have any files. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. We're just going to create a new folder, and we're going to call it exactly what the media type is, which is files. And then we're just going to hit create. Okay? Okay. So now I have a file folder, and you can see that that's now in this list. And I can create a subfolder underneath it just by doing a right-click create. Notice I also now have move and delete. Okay? So when you're looking at the folder, you'll see on the stage you've got a couple of tabs. You've got the content tab, which is currently empty because there's nothing in here. You've got the upload tab, which allows you to do a bulk upload of any kind of media. And then you've got the Properties tab, which allows you to rename this particular folder and also gives you some basic information. Okay? So when I click on the image slider folder, you're going to see that it gives me a couple of thumbnails. I can do that, go through each one of these. Notice that the folders over here in the nodes that have the little arrow, just like in the content section, means that there's additional content underneath it. So if I click on images, you'll see all the subfolders. I can double-click on that and see the media that's inside it, or I can expand separately. Okay? So that's basically kind of how the media section functions. And what you can do now is right-click to create things individually, or you can go to a folder and do a bulk upload. Certain types of media have configurations that you can set, but you have to create the basic information and upload the media for it before you would do anything else. So we're going to start with the simplest thing to do, which is a bulk upload of one of the two types of media that have no settings at all, and those are files and images. So we're going to right-click under Files, and we're going to do a Create. We're going to leave it set to a file, and we're going to give it a name. Okay. We're going to hit Create. Now what this is going to do, when you do a right-click Create for any other media than the folder, is it's going to leave a blank media item. There is no media associated with what I just created, right? So when you do a right-click Create for anything but a folder, it's going to be empty. And then you have the second step of clicking on the Browse to go to your local machine and find a single media item that you can then upload. Once you've browsed for it, you have to click Save. Once you do, it then uploads that media item. Okay? Now when you click on the Properties tab, when you click on the Properties tab, you're going to see here you can rename this if you like. You'll also see a link to the article. If I click this, it's going to open up the full media item, and it's going to show you the full URL. You don't necessarily need the full URL, because if you're using it on your own site, you just need the / and then everything after that. So you can ignore the .com and everything to the left, because if you wanted to link directly to this, you could just use the / and everything past it. But if you're using this email blast, you will need the full URL. Okay? So that's sort of how you can find the full URL for a media item. It's just go to the Properties tab, click on it, it'll open it up, and then you can just grab it from here. All right? So that singularly. If we wanted to do that in bulk, we would click on the folder, we would go to the Upload tab, we would select the media type from the drop-down. It defaults to file, but remember, just like in the Right Click Create in the Content section, selecting your type first is the best practice. Here, if you don't select your type first and you click Upload, everything will be uploaded as a file. Do keep in mind that the media types have unique functionality behind them. So if you upload an image as a file, it'll still work as a file, and it might still work as an image, but it also might not, because images are images and files are files. So try and remember to upload your media as the specific type that you're trying to use it as. Okay? So I've got file selected. I'm just going to click Add. It's going to bring up a window, and here, this is, hold on, I've got it on like, I'm just going to, all right, now you should see that. Sorry, what I'm doing is not working, so from a share perspective, it's blocking my pop-ups. There you should see my local computer, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to navigate where I've got a couple. I'm going to, let's say, just upload a couple of these things and then multiples and hit Open. And then here's the bulk upload screen. So what you have is a line item for every media item you're about to upload. It has the name of the file, has the size of the file, and the percentage of the file that has been uploaded so far, as well as the ability to remove each individual file one at a time. And then over here, we can add additional files, we can clear all these files, or we can just upload from here. Now at the bottom of the list, I have a running tally. It tells me I have a total of 4 files, a total file size of just under 1 meg, and the percentage that has been uploaded is 0. So when I click Upload, it's going to upload each one of these individually. It'll update each file, and it'll update the total. The key here is not to leave the screen until it completes 100% of the upload, or else it'll cancel the entire upload altogether. All right? Now, the limitation here is that each individual file that you're uploading, regardless of the media type, can be no more than 4 megabytes. As a best practice, media that is an image or an image that's going to go in a gallery or an image slider or in your footer should be far less than 4 megabytes. We try and tell people to keep it less than 5 if at all possible, 750 on the outside. But if you're uploading images at a meg or more, they're going to degrade your site performance. So that becomes a content issue that we can't fix for you, because if your media is, if you have an image slider with 10 megabytes of images in it, it's just going to be slow. That's unfortunately just how it's going to be. You're going to have to change the size of your images. Okay? Now, I don't mean the width and height. I mean the file size. Okay? You can have a 1280 pixel wide image that's 500 kilobytes or 10 megabytes. And it could be exactly mentioned in a totally different file size. That's something that you're going to have to be aware of when you're creating your content. Okay? Now, when I go back to the Content tab, I still only show one thumbnail here, even though when I expand the folder called Files, I see a ton of stuff here. The reason for that is that tabs are a view of one page. When you upload new files or whatever you upload by bulk, it doesn't reload that page. Even though it's adding it to the nodes, you're not getting an updated view. So you've got to actually refresh your view to see that. I just click on the file again, and it'll then show me each of these. Okay? So that is how to create an individual file, or how to create an individual media type, how to bulk upload a media type, and then moving is exactly the same. If we want to move this, we just click Move, just like we do in the Content section. And so is Sort. If I want to sort the items that are underneath here, it's a drag around just exactly like it is in the Content section. Okay? So the last item is Delete. Again, delete is unrecoverable. If you delete this, it is going to be deleted. So you get one warning. Are you sure you want to delete? If you say OK, it will be gone. All right? And that's basically just, you know, the reason why there is limited access for users is so that you can control who has the ability to delete, just so that no one's in there accidentally deleting stuff who shouldn't be. All right? For uploading files and for uploading images, files and images do not have additional settings. All of the other media types that you have, which will be image sliders, footer images, and gallery settings. So you have to create, by doing right-click create, the top level of anything that has settings. So we're going to do that. We're going to start with galleries because we don't have any here. So we're going to right-click and we're going to do a create. And as our best practice, we're going to select the media type first. It's a photo gallery. I'm going to give it a name. Okay. I'm going to click Create. Now what this does is it actually creates the top level of the photo gallery, which has all the settings. Okay. Now there are two tabs for settings because there are two types of galleries in our system. And in actuality, there are three types of galleries, but on the callouts, you have to determine which way you want it to display. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to walk through the settings. They're pretty easy to identify. There's just some things you need to make sure you pay attention to when you're setting this up. There are defaults for all these settings. The default will be defined in each setting itself. So for the thumbnail position, you can see that the position, it defaults to below. Now here are your options. Below, above, left, or right. You do not have an option to turn off the thumbnail. But you can always use an image slider instead of a gallery if you just want the images with no thumbnail. Okay? So we're going to leave it at default so you can see what that actually looks like. So we're going to leave it defaulting to below. If you wanted to automatically play through those images, you would check this box. We'll go ahead and check that. If you want to set the transition time between the different images in the gallery, then you would set that in seconds here and just put in a number. It defaults to 7. If you put a number in here and you don't check this box, then this is not going to work because this transition time directly affects autoplay. Okay? So be aware, if you've got settings set, but there is a caveat to that setting, it's going to be ignored unless the caveat is met. Right? Then we have randomize the slide order. Slides will be shown in the order they are in the admin console. If you want them to be random, just check this box. If you want people to be able to click the thumbnail and navigate the large image in the slider, you would check this box. If you want them to be able to navigate, it's going to change the display of the image thumbnails, and it will then allow you to set how many thumbnails should display. We're going to leave these off so you can see the default, and then we'll come back to this. So I'm going to go ahead and save my settings. All right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore the call-out settings for a moment. There's nothing in content because we haven't uploaded anything yet. So I'm going to go to upload, and the only thing I can upload here is going to be a type of gallery image. So I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, I'm just going to add my file. From here, I'm going to navigate to my local machine, and I'm going to find some images. All right, I'm going to grab these 8 images. I'm going to click open. I'm going to upload. Now, this is going to error out. Probably, well, what instance we're on? We're on 3? Yes. This should error out. The reason why it should error out is the same reason why when we had first uploaded that multiple files and clicked on the content tab and it didn't show it. It's because when you first create this container that has the settings, we haven't actually refreshed the creation of this to make sure it's fully created before we tried to upload to it. So it's basically just going to error out. So you just click OK, OK, and just click off of it, click back on it, go back to the upload tab, do the same thing we were just doing. And it should upload just fine. Now, the only other time it'll give you that error is if any individual image in this upload was more than 4 megabytes. Okay? So now we can expand this, right? Remember, I'm going to go to content. It's going to be blank. I just click on it again. It refreshes my view, and it'll show me the content. Okay. Now, there is a setting for every image in the gallery, and that's why this has to be a photo gallery image, not just a regular image, but a photo gallery image. So basically, you can set a caption for every single image in this photo gallery. So I'm just going to set it for that one. So now we have a gallery. Now if we want to use a gallery, the only place photo gallery can be used is on the full page layout. So we're going to come back to the admin console, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find the full page that's already here. So I'm going to click on Why Us. I'm going to look at the Properties tab, and I'm going to say, okay, this is a full width page. That way I don't have to create a new one. I'm going to go to the Gallery tab. So notice that there's a tab, and this tab only exists on the full width page, that allows me to set a gallery. All right, now I'm going to check the Content tab. Here it's just a full image and some content. Let's look at what that looks like on the front end real quick before we make a change to it. So there it is. All right, now keep in mind, this is how Fusion wanted this page to look. Okay, Regina, I don't know what information you have about how this kind of content came up. This that we got from Fusion, we would recommend that you go in and look at all of this and redo as you see fit. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. So, so here we are. We're on this page. We're going to go to the Gallery tab, and we're going to use our media control. That's just the choose. It's going to pop up my media section. Again, this is why we're doing that logical construction of folders, because it's really easy to figure out where this gallery went. It's right here. And then if we expand this, we don't want to select any individual gallery image because that won't function. We always want to select where the photo gallery settings are. So we're just going to grab that. We're going to save and publish this page. When we come back here, we're going to refresh, and you're going to see where this gallery is going to end up. Okay? Notice that it is directly below the page title. So the feature actually shows up between the menu and the breadcrumb, but the gallery is full container, so it's going to take up the entire body of the page. And I had the autoplay on, so that's why you're seeing it move right now. But it's going to be directly below the page title. So if we scroll down, you're going to see what that standard setting is. Here you're going to see that it's all thumbnails on the screen. And if this were 7 images, this would just be an empty space. Okay? So if you had 9 images, there'd be 1 over here. All right? So keep that in mind that this is pretty much the default. Now, one thing to notice is there's a fair amount of space right here. It's a fair amount of space right here because that is the space where the caption goes. So the best practice here would be, if you're going to use the caption area, use a caption on every image, or don't use it on any, or move the location of the thumbnails. Otherwise, you get this big space when you're on any image that doesn't have a caption. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and make some adjustments to these settings. So we're going to go back to the media, and if we're making changes to a media item, wherever that media item is used in the content section, it's automatically going to update everywhere that media item is used once the change is made and saved in the media section. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make this have thumbnail navigation. And we're going to set it to display 3 thumbnails. Okay? Now when we do that and we save this, it's going to change it from showing all of the thumbnails on the page to only showing 3 thumbnails on the page and allowing us to navigate back and forth. This is the better way to do it. All right, this is my personal preference from the user's perspective. However, you can control how much displays here. So there were 8 images. Let's say we wanted to show all 8 so that they're all on the screen. Then it will make those thumbnails just smaller. So see how that is? Now, let's say that I want to leave the caption for the first image, but I don't like this big old space that's here. Then my best practice for you would be to move these thumbnails above the gallery. Okay? Now you have the little space that should be there, but you still get your caption. All right. Now, I do not like left and right thumbnails because those thumbnails are not, they do not work with thumbnail navigation. So these two settings are going to be, actually all three of these will be ignored. And it does not constrain the thumbnails to the height of the image slider. It just flows it all the way. Oh, hello. Did we test that? All right. We may have a cache issue where it just doesn't want to show me that setting, or it may not be working with the left-right. We will get that looked at. That left and right gallery doesn't appear to have been tested. Let me try right. Nope, doesn't want to change. We'll get that fixed. But my note on that is I don't like left and right because what will happen is it'll flow the images all the way down the page. It will not constrain it to the height, and it looks kind of funky. So my recommendation is top or bottom. And whether or not you end up using thumbnail navigation or you want all the thumbnails to display, either way is totally fine. But we would just recommend using top or bottom because it is better on the page than having it be left or right, because you can't get them to line up the thumbnail images with the main image, and it just looks a little off. Okay? All right. So that is the primary gallery setting. So you can have, like I said, you can have any gallery you want on a full width page. Now separately in the gallery settings are call-out settings. Now we've talked about call-outs, right? The call-outs are going to be those items that you target from above the footer, below the body of the content. So you would put the call-outs right here. Now on your home page, right, on your home page we're using call-outs for these three items: the text on your home page, the contact form, and the search. But you have a call-out called a gallery call-out that is standard. So if we come back to the content section and we do a right-click create, you'll see that you have a standard call-out gallery that is separate from your image, search, and text call-outs. Those are custom for you. These three right here are custom for you. And just FYI, I'm going to actually show you the image. I created a bunch of stuff that Fusion didn't want to use. So I'll just show you what your image call-out looks like, because you probably haven't seen that. This was custom designed for you. Okay. So I've got that set to 2 columns, which is why it didn't put all these 3 together. But here's the image callout that we created custom for you, and it actually has an on-hover icon that can be used that goes over the top of this when you roll over. So this is the custom image callout, and then this is a standard text callout, and then this one is a custom form callout, and then your custom search. So basically, you then have access to the standard. So we're just going to go ahead and create a standard gallery callout. And we're going to call this one gallery, and we're going to label it carousel. There are 2 settings for the callout gallery in the media section. The default is carousel. Carousel shows multiple thumbnails in 3 columns across, and it has all this additional information. That's the default. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly what we did before. We're just going to click choose. We're going to select exactly the same gallery. Here's that gallery. Then we're going to give it a title. And this is the title for the call out. And give it some text. Okay. Then we can set a link if we want to. So we give it a link title, and then we can select a page or something else for it to go to. And then hide in mobile. This will actually hide this call out when it's in the mobile view, and I'll show you that in a moment. But all I'm going to do is save and publish this. I'm going to go ahead and place it on the home page. Okay. Save and publish that. But before I show it to you, let's go back and check the settings for this gallery. Okay, so call out settings. Display as a slider, that is the alternate view for this gallery. So if you leave it unchecked, it's going to display as the carousel, which is what we wanted to do right now. Then we have the autoplay, the pause the image on hover, randomizing slide over, stopping it from looping, hiding all of the different navigational elements, and then setting up the number of images to display in the carousel, which right now we're going to leave to the default. Okay? So everything here we're going to leave to default. So I've already set it up and selected it. So now it's actually going to display on its own row, because that's how I set it on the home page. And it's going to display that gallery as a carousel, and there it is. Okay? Now all of the elements that you see here are optional. So I could turn off the body text, I could turn off the link, I could remove the title, I can remove the caption from the individual image, I can set the number of thumbnails to display here, I can do all of that stuff. Okay? But this is the format of the carousel version of the image slider. Now if I want to go back and I want to change that to be a slider, instead of a carousel, it's going to be one column. Okay? And it will then flow up to be beside the item here, because this was one column. And now that this is one column, it can sit next to it. All right? And there you go. It just displays as a slider. Notice that the controls are down below instead of up above, but all the other content is the same. It's just we're seeing it as one image in a slider format instead of multiple images in a carousel format. Okay? So when you're creating your galleries, when you set the settings at the call-out setting tab, you have to decide which way you're going to use that gallery. If you do want to use exactly the same images in both views, you'll have to create a separate gallery and make one a carousel and one a slider. That's basically how you have to do that. Okay? Any questions on the gallery?
Nope.
Perfect. Okay. So image sliders work exactly the same way as galleries. They have the same functionality from a right-click create. So all we're going to do is we're going to right-click and create, and we're going to select the slider, which is the image slider. Give it a name. Hit create. We have the same type of settings. You can walk through these and determine what they are. They're all pretty basic. They have a label, and then they tell you what they do in the description. They have the content tab, which is currently empty, and the upload tab. Now we're just going to click off of it, click back on, go back to our upload. The only thing you can upload is the slider image. Okay, go ahead and add some images. I'm just going to do these 3. Upload them. Once they're uploaded, you're going to click on each individual image to see the available options that you can set. So in the custom homepage design, we designed a specific title and a link that can be set here. Okay? So for the title, this can be, right, this is the image's title text, right, and this is the link text, and then it can go to any link that you want, right, just do that, click save, right, then we're going to do it on the next one. We're just going to set that here, just the title, and on this one, we're going to set this with just the link. Okay? So then once we've created the image slider, that's all we got to do. We go back to the content section. We click on whatever page we want to set that for the feature tab. And then we just click choose under the folder that contains the rotator, which is for the image slider. We select the top level of the image slider we want, and then we save and publish. Back to the home page, hit F5 to refresh, and now the image slider is the one I just created. Okay? And there you go. Any questions on the image slider?
Nope.
All right. One thing I want to mention to you is that the image slider that we created here will always be 2/3 wide, and anything you put to the right of it either needs to be the same height as the images that you're putting in there, or it needs to be the map. The map is the only thing that is going to dynamically resize to be the same height as the image slider to in this feature section. Just keep that in mind. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and remove all these changes that I made so that they're not confusing for you. All right. I will go ahead and leave that test data for you in the media section, so you'll see the gallery, the test gallery. I'm going to delete the slider because you've already got one, but this test photo gallery, I'm just going to leave that for you there so that you can play with it if you want. Same thing in the content section. For the callouts, I will unpublish these two items, but I won't delete them for you so that you can take a look at them, how they work. If you choose, you could just publish them and then delete them if you don't want to use them later. Okay? Same thing goes with this page. This page specifically, I don't know if you're aware, but we created a couple of things just to have content. This page is dynamic content that I put in here for Michael that is from Panoramio. It's basically a Google Earth system that allows you to embed a dynamic map with approved Google images from the specific area that you've added to your to the map. So I created a Puyallup map, and these are Google Earth images of kind of like what's around Puyallup. It's kind of cool. I didn't delete it. It is unpublished, so if you want to use it, you're welcome to. All right? Okay, so any questions on the media section at all? Because that pretty much covers all the functionality of the media section.
Nope, I'm sure I will when I get started.
Sure. That is usually the way it goes, but if you have no questions just initially, then we will move on to the next item. So basically right now we're going to go over to the contour section. Contour is where you're going to manage your forms. Forms are considered just like pages and text and images and image sliders. There's something that you have to create and you have to maintain. Now I created two forms for you based on the homepage design. One was the contact form, one was the mailing list form, right? Now there are two ways to create a form. There's the right-click create, and then there's the create from this kind of landing page when you first get to the contour section. Now either way is fine. They both have exactly the same options and functionality. So if you do it from here, you would just type in the name, and then you would select from either no template to start with or starting with the contact or comment form. Starting with, let's say, like the contact form, it gives you a couple of fields, including some of the required code to validate email addresses. So we're just going to do it like that. So we're going to say test, actually, say NW brokers. I can type NW brokers test form. All right, now one of the things that we ask that you do as a best practice is in the forms section, always start the name of your form with the name of the site. The reason for this is that when we log in as an admin, unlike media and content, which are organized by site, forms are not. They are just a giant mass of forms. So if you just put in the name contact form, then you are one of hundreds of contact forms in the system. We cannot tell which one is yours. So if you ever have an issue with your form and you contact support, we go look for it, we can't find it because it's not named correctly, we'll kick it back to you and tell you we can't help you until you either delete and recreate it with the correct name or change the name so that we can find which one it is. So always start your forms with the name of the site. The second thing is that forms have explicit permissions. If 5 people have access to edit stuff in Northwest Brokers website, only the person who created the form has explicit access to edit that form. No one else is even going to see it unless the admin gives them permission. So basically what you would do is you would say, okay, I logged into my admin console and I'm looking at my forms and I don't see all my forms. You just submit a support request and we'll give you access to all the forms titled NW Brokers. Okay? That's part of the way that the form system works. It's just only the person who creates the form has access to it by default. All right, so I've named it here. I've selected the little, pre-formatted template that I want. I'm just going to click Create, just like I do everywhere else, and it's going to load that in the stage. Now, one thing to note is that it doesn't actually reload these nodes over here, so sometimes you have to right-click and do a reload in order to see that. Okay? All right, so here's my form. It pre-did it for me because I selected the contact form template, which has 3 fields on it already. It actually does contact, contact, and you want to select this and delete the text out of these 2 boxes. Okay? Any text that's in there, except click to edit, will actually show up on the page that the form is on. Click to edit is sort of ignored, but if you leave text like the contact text in there, it'll say contact, contact at the top of the form. Now, my personal preference is to put any text I want on the page, not in the form. But you can use these if you want to put some kind of direction like please fill out the fields below, things with an asterisk are required, those types of things you can use in these 2 text fields. All right? So this is a form. We just made a form. So we're just going to save it. All right? As soon as you make a basic form, you can add it to a page, and then just like in the media section, any change you make to the basic form automatically shows up anywhere that form is used. You can use the same form in an infinite number of locations, just like media. So we're going to go back to the content section, and we're going to go to, let's just say the 404 page. This is, you can put a form. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just going to stick a form here. Now, in the content section, like inserting an image from the Rich Text Editor toolbar, we need to insert a form. So to do that, we're going to use the macro icon. Basically, the orange angry-looking icon. It has the greater than and less than symbols pointing in opposite directions, and it's orange. That is where you're going to insert a form into your site. Basically, just going to click on that. It's going to open up that selection window to say what kind of macro do you want to insert. The only option you have is for contour. You're going to click OK, and it's going to bring up a radio button list of all of the forms that you have available. This is where you are going to realize you do or do not have all the forms you should have access to. Or if Michael creates one, you are not going to see it. If you create one, Michael's not going to see it without getting explicit permission from the admin system. So here's the one we just created, the NW Brokers test form. I'm going to select that radio button, and I'm going to hit OK. What this is going to do is it's going to load a dotted orange line macro placeholder into my Rich Text Editor. It is going to take a second because it is generating some code, and it's basically not going to look like a form, but as long as you see the orange dotted line in a box inside your Rich Text Editor, you're good to go. Once you see this, you're going to go ahead and just save and publish. Now, one of 2 things may happen. You'll either see the names of the form fields, or you'll still see the green arrow that says you can't edit this in the Rich Text Editor once it's saved and published. Either one of those is totally valid. You're not getting an error. You're just getting how it looks in the Rich Text Editor for a form, because you have to go back to the contour section in order to actually edit that form. Okay? So it's saved and published. There we are. We still have that. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to go look at this form. All right. So here's my 404 error page. Here's the form that I created. So now everything that we do to this form is going to automatically be updated on this page. So we're going to go back to the admin console. We're going to go back to contour. We're going to go back to our test form. And we're going to start making some changes here. All right. So the first thing to note is that you have the ability when you roll over each one of these items, you're going to see some icons pop up. All the way to the left, you have the ability to grab and drag each one of these form fields around so that they're in a different order. All the way to the right, you have the ability to delete a field, to create a copy of this field, or to edit the field. Okay, so as an example, if you wanted name to say full name, click Edit and update the caption, and you now have full name. Once you've edited it, click Update Field, and then click Save. Once you get the form saved, you can go back to where this form is used, refresh it, and you can see the order update and the text update. Okay? So that's pretty easy. That's an edit. So we've done move and we've done edit. We can create a copy by just clicking the copy. Creates an identical copy, but it's going to tell you that it is the copy. And then we can go in and edit that if we choose. We can also just remove it. Yes, I want to delete it. Okay? Now to add new fields, just going to click the big button that says Add Field. Here you're going to select the type of field as a best practice first. So here are all the fields that you have access to. It's everything that you could possibly want on a form. Individual check lists, date pickers, drop-down lists, uploads, hidden fields, radio button lists, reCAPTCHA, text fields, and text areas. Okay? Things to note, anything that's a list has multiple steps to it. So we're going to go ahead and just create a checkbox list. All right? We're going to give it that, and then we're going to click Add Field. Now notice that the additional step is not showing me multiple checkboxes because I haven't defined those yet. So here we have to click the Edit, and then we're just going to tell it what are the checkbox items that I want. Oops, I hit Enter instead of Add Value. Right, until I have all the ones that I want. So I've got 3 here. Now notice I can reorganize these if I so choose, just like I could before, and I can remove them just like I could over here. Now I need to update my items, and now I need to save my changes. Okay? Then I can come back over here, and I can refresh this, and I can see my updated form. Okay? So it's pretty much that simple. What we recommend is that, as a best practice, you come in, you create a test form, and you put on one of every type of field so that you can see how each one of them works. The only one that you cannot use is password. The reason why you cannot use password is because that would require some form of back-end integration, which we are not doing with any of your systems. So if for some reason you have a need to have a password passed through to a form, then it would require development on our end. So just don't use that as a field. Okay? So that's the basics of creating a form, and your forms can be infinitely complex. However, if your form is extremely lengthy, we recommend that you use steps for your form. So let's say, for an example, you want to take a survey. You want to have 100 questions on your survey. So you're going to create a survey form, and you want to have 10 pages of 10 questions. So only 10 questions would show on a page, and then they would click Next. So to do that, you're going to create a new form step by simply clicking on this link. You're going to say, yep, that's good. Just going to do this, and then we're going to add a field. Now, this here, we just want to kind of do the same thing that we did on the other one. We just want to remove those labels if we're not going to use them. Otherwise, the text will show up. So here, we're just going to call this Step to Text, and we're going to leave it as a text field and click Add. And there it is. So now when we save this, what's going to happen is our Submit button is going to become a Next button. All right? Now to see that, I actually have to fill some of this out because all of these, oops, that's, all right, make this next. Oh, fine. All right, then you'll see the please wait, and then it goes to the next element in the form, okay? So I can toggle back and forth. Right, and it keeps my entries until I hit Submit. Okay, and here's my Submit button. So that is how stepping works. To remove the step, we're going to go to the page that we're on, and we're simply going to delete the top level. And that deletes that step and takes us back to that first page. All right. Now notice that I could not fill out, I could not go to the next step without filling out these 3 items because they're required. So if we look at the edit here, you'll see there's a checkbox for mandatory. That check means that it cannot be submitted without that field having something in it. Now notice that I also could not move forward without having the correct format for email. Now, that is not an automatic function of the system. That is something you have to manage manually. So how you manage this is you edit the field. When you're in here editing, you have some additional settings. So if you click additional settings, here's what you're going to see. You have the ability to set a regular expression, which is what a regex is. That is a validation for this field. You can also set the error messaging, tooltips, and the default value, as well as conditions, which we'll talk about in a moment. We will provide you, when we set up your user accounts, the actual expression for email. However, if you were to use the contact form as a template when you start a form, it will insert that code for you automatically. So I just recommend you do that all the time. That way you don't have to worry about digging up this regular expression. Okay? This regular expression looks like that. Basically, it says an email address can only contain characters from A to Z, 0 through 9. It can then also include a period with characters A to Z, 0 through 9, right? And then it's validating the first half. Then it must include the @ symbol. Then it can only include characters A to Z, 0 through 9, etc., etc. Then it has to be a period and A to Z, etc. So that's what you're seeing here. So it's validating the format of an email address. It doesn't validate whether or not that email is actually a good one. So if I typed in a@a.com, that's bounced, but it still meets the regular expression. Okay? So that's what you see here. That's the validation for email. Now you can put in any kind of validation for anything that you want, but you'll have to come up with those validations yourself. So as an example, if you want to put in validation that the name must be at least 3 characters long and those characters can only be A to Z, you'll have to write out that regular expression yourself. You can Google regular expression for whatever it is you want, and someone will have already written that, and you can just copy and paste that into that regular expression field. Okay? All right. So this is a form. That's it. That's the sum total of doing forms. So now what we need to do is we need to define what happens to the person once they submit the form and what happens to the details of the form once it is submitted. Those 2 items are called workflow. So there are 2 types of workflow you have to set. So the first one we're going to do is pretty easy. We're going to follow our best practice, which was go from the first tab all the way down and then go to the next tab. So here's our next tab, and this is settings. Settings is going to show you the name of the forms in case you need to change it. It's going to have a bunch of other stuff on here, including validation that's global instead of field by field, which you can change. Leave the curly brackets and the 0. That actually is replaced by the name of the form field when it's used. So if the form field is full name, it'll say full name is mandatory, full name is not valid. Okay? But down here is the thing that you must set if you want to control the workflow for what happens to the user when they submit this form. All right? Now, the default is just this right here. Thank you. What happens by default, if I were to actually submit this form, right? Let me reload this page because it has not loaded here. Wait. Sorry. All right. If I were to submit this form, what would happen is the form would simply be replaced on submit with a thank you message. Okay? That thank you message stays on exactly the page that you're on. The form just disappears and is replaced by the thank you message. That means that the URL is exactly the same. Okay? That URL is going to be whatever the URL is of the form is on. The reason why this is important is if you're tracking form submission, you need to be able to track it in 2 ways. That they hit the form page, but then once they submit a form, if it's the same URL, you won't know they submitted that form. So you should create a thank you page. That's the best practice. You would go to the content section, you would create a thank you page, and you would hide it from the search engines. And then you're going to come here and you're going to set send to page. So I'm not going to create a thank you page, but I am going to go ahead and set it to just redirect to, let's say, oh, I did create you a thank you page. Well, you're lucky. I already created you a thank you page. It's right here. I did that before. So I'm going to select that thank you page. Everything on the site, every form can use the same thank you page if you want, or they can be unique to the form that you're on. And I'm just going to click Save. All right? Now, when I come back here and I fill this out, all right, I'm just going to hit Submit. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to redirect me to the thank you page. Okay? Notice, you can tell because the URL is now different. Okay? Now, this is all the content on that page, but you control this page as a content page in the admin console. So you should go in and put additional content here. Things like what to do next. If, we'll respond within 3 business days. If you don't hear from us or can't reach us or need us immediately, please call the office. That kind of information is what should go on your thank you page. Okay? So that is how you set the workflow of what happens to the user. Right? Now you need to set the workflow to what happens to the content of the form. All right? So if you're on the Designer tab, or if you expand the form in the nodes, you're going to see the other workflow. All right? It's this icon right here. There it is right there. Okay? So either way that you click on this, it's going to take you to that workflow. And this is the workflow that has to do with the form itself being submitted. What happens to the content of the form itself. If no workflow is defined, the only place you're going to find that content is in the entries for that form. There is a table here, and it does show you all of the information about the form elements that were submitted. So, when was it created, what's the IP address, the page ID this was loaded to, the URL it was on, the email address, full name, message, and the checkbox that was selected. These are all the fields that were part of that form plus some additional information. Well, you want to get this to you automatically in whatever way you're going to consume that. The most common is by email. So when you come over to workflow, you have what to do when the form is submitted. This is the only one you need to fill out. Just going to click Add Workflow, and from the drop-down, you're going to select Send Email Extended. All right. Now here, generally, I usually add the email address to whomever I'm sending this to because I like to be able to see that at a glance. Then you're just going to fill this out. So who should this email be sent to? So who should receive the content of the form? Right? Then the from email address. Now here's where it's a little bit tricky. You can put in here the field from the form itself so that the content of the form preloads here. So to do that, and you see this up here, it's actually the instructions for how to do that are here, has to do with putting in the curly brackets. So what you're going to do is you're going to remember that in my form I called email, email, and all lowercase. I'm just going to put curly bracket, email, curly bracket. Then what it's going to do is it's going to take whoever filled out the form, their email address, and it's going to send you an email that says it's from that person. That way you can just auto-reply. All right? Same thing here. We call this one full name. Remember, all lowercase, all one word, in curly brackets. Reply to, email, subject, test form from NW brokers, right? And then you've got to put something in here. Whatever is in here will show above the content of the actual form submission. Then you want to send the fields along. And if you're using attachments in your form, you also need to select attachments. Okay? Then you click Add. Now, that's it. There's no save for workflow. Once you click Add, it's there. You can do an infinite number of workflows. All right? So you should go in and you should check out your options. Most common option, extended. The next one is going to be post form to URL, which is generally how you integrate with your CRM system if you have one. Okay? Now once this is here, what happens is when someone submits this form, they make an entry, and then it will also send an email with all of the form information to whoever was defined in this workflow. And that's it. That's the sum total of forms. Any questions on creating or setting up a form or configuring the workflow?
Nope.
All right. So that's basically everything in the administration console that is for creating content, setting up your site, managing all that information, uploading and configuring media, linking the media to your pages, creating forms and setting their configuration. So I'm going to delete that form off the 404 page so it's not just some funky test form. You will not see that test form with your user login because it's not going to be assigned. You won't see access to that. And we do need a list of all users from you that need access and the level of access before we can set that up. Okay? Generally, it takes about a day or two for up into Vimeo, set up those users once we have who they're going to be, and then fully test those users. We've actually got to test the users to make sure that they have the correct access. And then support will send an email to each individual user explicitly with their access level information, their login, and all of that. And we highly recommend that everybody changes their password immediately. Okay? Any questions on the overall, anything across the different things that we've covered in the last 2 days?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay. Did we get the user setup set? I don't think so.
I think I did. Yes, I did.
I don't.
I was not there yesterday.
Yeah, but this is likely not. Okay. I'm surprised that many people have done that, I guess is all I'm saying. Okay, so the one thing with this user, so that you could see what this is. So basically, on the front end, you have the sign in and the register, right? Anyone who does that is tracked in this front end user admin section, so you can see everyone who's done that here. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all of these people because these are all test users except for Al. I'll leave Al there, but these are all our internal people. Once you remove them, they'll no longer show up, which is why I'm just going to remove our test logins here. And that will give you a better idea of when you're looking at it, you're actually looking at people who've actually registered other than those of us who are internal people here. Okay? From here, you can export this information, but you can't. It does not have workflow, so you have to come in here and manually export it.
Did you say something, Regina?
Yeah, the only folks that'll have access to it right now will just be Michael and myself.
Okay.
To the admin console?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to assume Michael is not going to do any editing.
Probably not.
Okay.
He'll dictate what he wants done, and then I'll go in and make the changes.
Okay. I would be very concerned to give him access when he has not had any training, because he could easily delete something and cause a problem.
Okay.
So what I would recommend is that we just give you access, and then at some point, if he gets a chance to watch the videos and he would like to be able to go in and make access, we can do that at any time.
Okay, that works.
Okay. So then we don't need an email from you then if you're going to be the only person, so we'll just get you set up. And like I said, it'll probably be Monday before that gets out to you once all this is processed.
Okay.
And what will happen from here forward is any questions or issues or bugs or anything that you have for the site, you are going to go through the support system.
Okay.
Okay. So again, there are two ways to access that. It is by clicking on the support icon down here, filling out the form and submitting it, or by emailing support directly, which is just webarchitect@exsquared.com.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if it's a BDX issue especially, right, like if you have questions, you can just call Brandon directly. Just pick up the phone and ring him, and he'll walk you through that. But if it's like, hey, I can't remember how to set the workflow on a form, just submit that through, and we'll get that taken care of via support.
Okay.
And then once you have the one outstanding item for us, for you guys, is the MLS wrapper.
Okay.
So we will need you just need to sign up for a broker, an IDX broker, and then send us that login information and then we will create the wrapper itself based on whatever the IDX's requirements are, and we'll get it installed on the IDX, and we'll get the menu items set up on your site. Now, the one thing to note is that that's not automatic. It's, I'm just going to assume you don't know how the wrapper works. I'm just going to walk you through that real quick, and then at least you'll know how we think of it, even if you're aware of how they generally work. A wrapper basically means that you're creating a fake version of your website for someone else to host that looks like your website but is not your website, okay? And when we do that, basically it won't automatically update the wrapper when you update things on your site. So I'm going to give you an example, and this is not one of our websites. This is a third party, but it's the only one I happen to know off the top of my head. Whoa, that's not right. Is that right? That's not right. Hold on, give me just a moment. No, this may be, they may have changed it. It looks like they've changed their site, so their wrapper must be gone. I'm trying to think if I know of another site that has a wrapper. Well, I'll just explain it to you. So basically what we're going to do is we are going to take this HTML that is styled up here for the top of your website and the HTML that is the bottom here, and we create just a static version of that. So any change to your menu in WebArchitect will not update the wrapper for the IDX. So if you change communities to say like all communities, you'll have to manually go in and change the text for that wrapper in the IDX broker because it'll be a one-time static wrapper. And then what happens is one of these menu items will be like, you know, MLS listings, whatever you want to call it. When someone clicks on that, it's actually going to take them away from your website, okay? It's going to take them to a subdomain that looks something like this. It'll look like the URL for your website, but it'll actually be a fake URL. It'll have your website domain, and then it'll be like idxbroker.com. So that's actually the domain that will be hosting your MLS listing, right? It would be that. They fake it by putting your actual domain as a subdomain ahead of it. They have your static header and your static footer, and then the middle of the page is all your MLS listings. So what we actually are creating for you is that custom header and footer and the CSS that drives the style of the interior portion of the page to make it match up with your custom design. But it's actually hosted on their site, and it's static, which means changes to the header and footer have to be done manually. Okay?
Got it.
All right, so as soon as you have the IDX account, just let us know, and we'll get working on that.
I will do that.
All right. Okay, well, if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to turn it back over to Crystal, and we'll get wrapped up here.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, Regina, I'll go ahead and have the videos, the links, and the password sent to you on Monday, and then we can get your user login set up and just sort of go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Thank you.
No problem. Have a good day.
You too.